Hello everybody, this is CJ Wiley with more adventures on the road. The mid-80s was some of the best periods for pool gambling, and road hustlers were everywhere. I mean, I ran into groups of them, and a lot of us knew each other. You know, we had an underground network, and it was funny. I've had some pool hustlers tell me that they were unfortunate to get behind, trios like Strong Arm John, Doug Smith, and myself, because they said we left nothing but tombstones in the pool rooms. It's not a good feeling for a pool hustler to go into a room that's already been hustled out of most of their money and then try to get a game. It doesn't go over very well. As a matter of fact, you got to be careful about that, because they could think that you're with the ones that just hustled them, and you could get in trouble like that. So in 1984 is when I was hanging around Florida and ended up moving to Tampa in 85 after Strong Arm John and I took off the Fort Lauderdale area in Miami. When I say took off, I mean we beat them out of probably close to 50,000 altogether. We went down to the Keys, and I've told those stories about playing Billy Bob, who'd never been beat before. We won every quarter, or at least every dollar in the whole bar, including all the money in the cash register, and ended up leaving. I look at back at that, and I'm like, man, how did we get away with it? But man, we just acted like it was normal business, and we Strong Arm John, of course, was a really big guy, but I never had any fear about not getting out with the money, even though I've had several violent situations. I was stuck up 3 times at gunpoint before I was 23, and then the time I got knifed twice. But quite honestly, all those situations helped me in life, especially got me over the fear of death, which is a great strength, because it's a paralyzing fear for a lot of people. They don't do things, and I'm not talking about being reckless with anything. I'm just talking about situation wise. You can't really live in fear a very fulfilling life. I really advocate living in curiosity. That's the main thing. So anyway, I moved to Tampa, Florida, a lot because of T.R. McIntosh, who was like a big steak horse. I mean, literally big. He weighed over 500 pounds. I think he got in trouble one time, and the FBI came in, and they were going to arrest him, but they couldn't get him out of his house. So he was on house arrest, literally, for a couple years. But he was a funny guy and really good on the phone. I remember he would call up, and they'd ask him who he was, and he'd say, "I'm Armando Farfadidi." And he would just keep a straight face, straight voice on the phone, and he could get people to do things that was amazing to me. I would listen to him be on the phone when I was like 21, and just get a kick out of it, because he was just so good, so fluent and effective with his manipulations. So I was gambling a lot at the time and playing at a super high level. As a matter of fact, TR backed me against Dave Favor when we played over in Melbourne, Florida, and he wouldn't play me if we both could break the balls. He said I broke too good. So we both played the ghost, and I ran the first 19 racks in a row going to 21. We're playing for 400 a game, and those of you that's played in Florida know the tables there play real wet and real tight. So running 19 racks in a row was a pretty good feat, and that was when I was 20 years old. So I went over to Tampa, and they talked me into going to a tournament. I was very low-key. I didn't want to be known at all. I used fake names, and we didn't have the internet, so they couldn't get pictures of me very well. Until what I'm getting ready to tell you. They talked me into playing in the World Series of Tavern Pool. And one of my strongest road partners was Omaha John, and he had won that tournament. I think he won it in like 82 and won 25,000 for first. And back then, even if you got in the magazines, people, it's hard to recognize somebody just off of a picture. And so in 1986, I went out and played in that tournament. There were 756 players, single elimination. And I went through the whole tournament, and I got into the finals against a guy named Bill Eigel from Los Angeles, a great player. And I remember how nervous I was. I had to go to the bathroom. It's like I drank 2 gallons of water about 5 or 6 times. I don't know exactly why, but that's how the nervousness affected me. But when I played, I had the video of that match. I wish I still did. Maybe I can uncover it sometime, but I didn't show any nervousness in the match, and I played almost perfect to win that match against Bill. And they put me on the cover of Billiard News, which I wasn't really very comfortable with, but it was like a newspaper, so you couldn't really see my features that well. So I started to wear semi-disguises. I always liked to wear fake glasses. That worked the best. But I'd wear hats and camouflage jackets, and I'd have a Skull Bandit can in my back pocket. I mean, my best act was just like a country bumpkin. And that's where I developed like a Southern accent. I'm from northern Missouri, so I don't have a Southern accent, but I faked it so much that I actually developed it. So I could match different, slangs, and each part of the country, they have like, a different way of talking. They have, especially in the pool world, there's different slang words that it helps to know. Because if you use the wrong words in the wrong area, it raises flags, and they might suspect you of not being from around there. Because I remember I'd be in the South, and they'd ask me where I was from, and I'd say, I'm from L.A. And they say, Los Angeles? I said, no, Lower Alabama. So that was funny. A lot of times my best hustle was to always tell the truth. And people won't believe the truth. They'll believe lies. I had a friend tell me, Donnie Haney from New Mexico. He's from Las Cruces, New Mexico. Great guy. And he would tell me, CJ, people would rather climb a tree to hear a lie than stand on the ground to hear the truth. And boy, I tell you what, that's proven to be true, especially in this day and age. Man, people believe lies like they're lapping up milk, like a cat lapping up milk. But the truth, a lot of the truth actually infuriates people, because it causes cognitive dissonance. Because once somebody believes something real firmly, and you tell them something that's different from that, that's what that cognitive dissonance is. They can't process 2 conflicting thoughts at the same time. And once you know that, it's easy to exploit them. Now, I try not to do that these days, unless I'm just having fun. I like poking people with, things that violate their worldviews. But if they get emotional, they lose. They don't understand that if you have a belief and somebody challenges it, any type of emotion attached to that is, shows that you really don't know what you're talking about. Because if you're confident in your beliefs and you can actually prove them, then why would you get aggravated? I spent a lot of my life convincing people that I was dumb, stupid, country bumpkin, that I didn't know what I was talking about. And it's fun, but it's the opposite of what most people will do. Most people will try to make people think that they're really honest and they're really smart and they really know what they're talking about when it comes to things that they actually don't know what they're talking about. Because if you can't prove it for yourself, then it's pretty much hearsay. I don't care if 1 million people tell it to you. Even though, one person can be right and 1 million people be wrong. I can show you many examples of that. So I went to that World Series of Tavern Pool and won the tournament. And Scotty Townsend was out there. If you know Scotty, he was a legendary gambler and hustler and road player. And we teamed up out there. And I've told the story about when we were partying and I got too messed up to play, but he jumped up and beat some of the best bar table players from Los Angeles out of several $1,000s while I was passed out on a pool table. But I woke up and he had that big wad and he was standing over me. So we went and partied some more. Those were the good old days. But that was a real learning experience, because the tournament was at the MGM Grand, and like I said, there were 756 players. So there was also a lot of people, there just to watch. A lot of them were spouses, friends of people that were playing. But when we played in the finals, it was packed. There was probably at least 500 people there. And they videotaped it, which back then, that was kind of new. We actually had video cameras to do that. We couldn't obviously do it on a phone. We didn't even have cell phones at the time. So anyway, I won that tournament, and what had happened, Miller Lite backed out of the sponsorship like 2 or 3 weeks before the tournament. And I was already committed, so I went anyway, but the prize money went in half. So I didn't win $25,000. I won, I can't remember. I think by the time I got home, man, I think they reduced it to either $15,000 or $7,500 even. Because I think I ended up winning about $4,000 my end by the time I got home. And that was a huge disappointment, because I could make that every week gambling and didn't have to play, 12 great, pretty good players in a row in a single elimination tournament to do it. So when we went on the road back then with my, best road partners like Omaha John, Weldon Rogers, and Strong Arm John, we would win average like $2,000 a day, $1,000 a piece a day. So we could go out for like 15 days and win about $30,000. Now, the expenses came off there too, but I mean, we'd end up with like $12,000 or something, which was a pretty good score back then for a 20-year-old kid. But because of that situation of not winning very much money, and I really didn't, it's a thrill to play in front of a lot of people, and I grew to like it. But at the time, that just wasn't my thing. I liked being by myself. And I liked keeping low key and sneaking up on people, because I made a ton of money. And, it's just a different way of life. I know Earl Strickland told me the first time he played in front of a bunch of people, he knew that was his destiny. He loved it. He likes performing in front of a lot of people, and I do too now. It's just a different mindset. It's hard for me to go back. As a matter of fact, it's impossible for me to go back to the gambling frame of mind. I'm just a different person now. I'm not near as hardcore as I was. I was like a stone cold killer is how they announce everybody, but I was closer to a hitman than people would think. I'm so glad I had the talent in pool, because I don't think I would have done too well in life if I had to get a 9-to-5 job. I probably would have been some type of gangster, because those are the people I like to hang around the most. And quite honestly, most of the people that I beat out of the money were drug dealers and bookmakers and pimps and underworld characters. people that had embezzled a lot of money. We beat them out of the money. Because a fool and their money shall soon part. That's one of the only things my dad ever told me that I remember. A fool and his money shall soon part. But, it's funny, I beat these drug dealers out of a lot of money, over 100,000, with some other partners. And we were impersonating a drug dealer. And it was funny because we did it a little bit too well, because a year later or so, they had trouble with like the DEA or the FBI or whoever it is that goes after them for conspiracy charges. It wasn't a conspiracy theory. Well, it was, I guess, with me. But it was hilarious. I'd like to see this in a movie sometime. My mother was working at my pool room and I was out of town. And these three men came in suits and went up to her, and they asked for me. My real name is Carson J Wy. The J doesn't stand for anything. It's just an initial. That's why you don't put dots after the C or the J. It's my name. They named me Carson J so they could call me CJ. My parents did. So they went in and asked for Carson J Wy. My mother said, well, he's not here right now. He's out of town. And they said, well, ma'am, we need you to get him a message to contact us. And she was like, who are you with? And they said, we're with the DEA and FBI. I think there was both of them. Anyway, they gave her a card, and that was DEA. And they gave me, or she gave me that card because, it was a serious deal. They had people that were trying to say that I was involved in some illegal activities. Well, the funniest part is she asked them what it was about, and they said, ma'am, we have reason to believe that your son's the third largest marijuana dealer in the state of Texas. And she looked at them and she said, well, that can't be. And they said, well, we have people that are willing to testify that. And my mother again shakes her head and says, well, that can't be. If my son was a marijuana dealer, he would be number one. All right. That was my mother. That sums up my mother so well. She just took it for granted I was going to be the best at everything I did, and she only gave me like one compliment my whole life, and I'll keep that one to myself, but I think that should be in a movie sometime. It's just hilarious to think about. But when she gave me that card from the DEA, my hands started shaking, because I knew that, those conspiracy charges, they don't have to have any proof. They can just have 2 or 3 people, telling the same story about you. So anyway, I had a great friend named Keith that was a super attorney. I haven't talked to him in years. I'm sure he's worth 10 million plus by now. He's so, not only intelligent, but aggressively money hungry, let's say. I think you have to be a lawyer. But he got on the phone with the DEA. He called him up. He took the card and called him up. And he just gave this guy on the other end of the phone a tongue lashing and told him, that he represented Carson J Wy and he was a celebrity in the billiard world, and a lot of people were jealous and had animosity and blah, blah, blah. I wish I had that conversation recorded, because it was so good. It gave me chills listening to it, especially like the courage he had to talk to. I would be scared to talk to the FBI or the DEA, they're like larger than life. I've only seen them on TV mostly, so, but anyway, he, whatever he said to him worked. And then, I had a major article come out in the Dallas Morning News. It was in the Dallas Life, that Michael Giffner, a sports writer from New York, wrote that I think they said 2.3 million people read that because it went out on Valentine's Day in Dallas. And in that story, it's online. You can search it and find it. I tell him about specifically how I impersonated a drug dealer to capture a lot of those guys gambling, because they had a lot of money. Losing $100,000 for some of those guys was literally a drop in the bucket. But anyway, if you like my stories and you want to learn more about my fundamentals, techniques, and systems I use to become the ESPN World Champion and be voted one of the top 3 money players of the 20th century with my buddy Earl Strickland and my nemesis, Efren Reyes, who is the GOAT right now. I think he's soon going to be surpassed by Shane Van Boening, but right now, the magician was just, he came with the shots at the right time and the right place and the right situation. So that's what made him special. He was a magician. So you can get a hold of me at cjwiley.com. I'll talk with you soon.